Let me set out the details of exactly what we've agreed and why. I began this negotiation to address the concerns of the British people, and today all 28 member states have signed up to concrete reforms in each of the 4 areas that I set out. British jobs and British business all depend on being able to trade with Europe on a level playing field. So our first aim in these negotiations was to get new protections for countries like ours, which are in the single market but not in the euro. Let me take you through what we've secured. We have permanently protected the pound and our right to keep it. For the first time, the EU has explicitly acknowledged that it has more than one currency. Responsibility for supervising the financial stability of the UK remains in the hands of the Bank of England, so we continue to keep our taxpayers and our savers safe. We've ensured that British taxpayers will never be made to bail out countries in the Eurozone. We've ensured that the UK's economic interests are protected. We've made sure that the Eurozone cannot act as a bloc to undermine the integrity of the free trade single market. And we've guaranteed that British business will never face any discrimination for being outside the Eurozone. For example, our financial services firms can never be forced to relocate inside the Eurozone if they want to trade in euros, just because they're based in the UK. And not only are these rules set out in a legally binding agreement, we've also agreed that should the UK or another non-euro member state fear that the rules are being broken, they can activate an emergency safeguard unilaterally to ensure that these rules are enforced. Let me be clear, because there has been debate about this, Britain will have the power to pull this lever on our own. Our second aim in these negotiations was to make Europe more competitive, so we create jobs and make British families more financially secure. We've secured a declaration outlining a number of commitments in this area. For the first time, the European Union will now say that competitiveness is, and I quote, an essential objective of the Union. This is important because it goes to the very heart of what Europe should be about. It means Europe will complete the single market in services. This will make it easier for service-based companies like IT firms to trade in Europe. Nowhere will this be more of an opportunity than in the United Kingdom, where thousands of service companies make up 2/3 of our whole economy. It could add up to 2% to our economy each year. That is a real improvement. The European Union will also complete the single market in capital. This will mean UK startups will be able to access more sources of finance for their business, and it will also present new opportunities for the UK financial services industry. Europe will now also complete the single market in energy. This will allow more suppliers into the UK energy market, lowering bills and increasing investment across the continent. That is a real improvement too. In addition, we've secured commitments from Europe to complete trade and investment agreements with the fastest growing and most dynamic economies around the world, including the USA, Japan and China, as well as our Commonwealth allies, India, New Zealand and Australia. These deals could add billions of pounds and thousands of jobs to our economy every year. And because I know that one of the biggest frustrations with Europe, especially for small businesses, is red tape and bureaucracy, we've also got Europe to introduce targets to cut the total burden of EU regulation on business. That means that from now on, the cost of EU red tape will be going down and not up. Our third aim in these negotiations was to reduce the very high level of migration from within the EU by preventing the abuse of free movement and preventing our welfare system from acting as a magnet for people to come to our country. In this respect, we've secured the following. First, new powers against criminals from other countries, including powers to stop them coming to Britain in the first place and powers to deport them if they're already here. Longer re-entry bans for fraudsters and people who collude in sham marriages. An end to the ridiculous situation where EU nationals can avoid British immigration rules when bringing their families from outside the EU. We've also secured a breakthrough agreement for Britain to reduce the unnatural draw that our benefit system exerts across Europe. We've already made sure that EU migrants cannot claim the new unemployment benefit, universal credit, while looking for work. And those coming from the EU who haven't found work within 6 months can now be required to leave. Today we've established a new emergency brake so that EU migrants will have to wait 4 years until they have full access to our benefits. This finally puts an end to the idea that people can come to our country and get something for nothing. The European Commission has said unambiguously that Britain already qualifies to use this mechanism. And it won't be some short-term fix. Once activated, this break will be in place for a full 7 years. We've also agreed that EU migrants working in Britain can no longer send child benefit home at UK rates. These changes will apply first to new claimants, and after intense negotiations, we've ensured that they will apply to existing claimants from the start of 2020. I came here to end the practice of sending child benefit overseas at UK rates, both for current and for future claimants, and I've got them both. Our fourth aim in these negotiations was to protect our country from further European political integration and increase powers for our national parliament. Ever since we joined, Europe has been on the path to something called ever closer union. It means a political union. We've never liked it, we've never wanted it. And today we've permanently carved Britain out of it, so we can never be forced into political integration with the rest of Europe. The text of the legally binding agreement today sets out in full the UK's position. It says that the treaties will be changed to make clear, and I quote, "The treaty references to ever closer union do not apply to the United Kingdom." Let me put this as simply as I can. Britain will never be part of a European superstate.